Okay, we've got a number of updates for you on the storm situation. We'll go over a lot of information, then happy to take your questions on this topic only. I want to emphasize today we'll be talking about this topic only. With me, Joe Bruno, Commissioner of the Office of Emergency Management, John Doherty, Commissioner of the Department of Sanitation, our new Transportation Commissioner, Polly Trottenberg, Sal Casano, our Fire Commissioner, Kathleen Grimm, Deputy Chancellor at Department of Education, Division of Operations, and Chief Joe Fox, the Chief of the Transit Division, NYPD. So the fact is that we are facing not one, not two, but three storms potentially this week. This one, potentially the most severe of the three that we're dealing with right now, but we should be ready for anything. I think we've all learned that together, dealing with snow in the last 4 or 5 weeks. The second storm likely to arrive on Tuesday night, the third on the weekend. So we are actively addressing this storm while preparing for the next two. Now today I can say to my fellow New Yorkers, things are going to be messy today. Snow is coming down faster than we can plow it. We have a very aggressive plowing operation going on, but the snow is coming down very rapidly. In some areas of the city, already 5 inches of snow on the ground or more. And because the snow has arrived as the workday was beginning, the work of the sanitation department is complicated by the presence of so many additional vehicles on the streets, so that plows are doing their best to reach as many areas as possible, but are slowed by all the normal traffic of a workday. As I've said in the previous situations, this is a day to take mass transit to the maximum extent possible. If you have to go out, please use mass transit. It will be faster, it will be safer. Please leave your car behind if you can. And as we've said in previous storms, when we get past the rush hour night, please stay off the roads. The best way to make sure we have a clear day tomorrow on our streets is to give sanitation the room to do their job, the time to do their job. If cars are off the streets after rush hour tonight, sanitation can do a much better job getting ready for tomorrow. If you are walking, please be careful. Sidewalks and crosswalks are going to be very slick because of the continuing snow. Now, here's the update we have from the National Weather Service. Winter storm warning is in effect. Started at 5 a.m. today, will continue to 7 p.m. As we have also learned from dealing with the National Weather Service, things can change. But at this moment, we expect the winter storm warning to continue to 7 p.m. Moderate to heavy snow will continue to approximately 2 p.m. Snow will taper off by 7 p.m. Total of, depending on the part of the city, between 4 to 8 inches total. Again, in some areas of the city, we're between 4 and 5 inches already. So we're probably going to get closer to that 8-inch mark in many parts of the city. Good news is the temperatures are much better than in the previous storm. Today's high will be in the low 30s. Wind chills bring it down only to the low 20s. So we have a much better environment in terms of the health and safety of our citizens, but also in terms of sanitation's efforts, as we have learned. I've been in a constant tutorial with Commissioner Doherty, and I've learned the difference of how salt responds to warmer temperatures and colder temperatures, so a little bit warmer is helping us so that the salt will work more effectively. Excuse me. As always, the response to the storm is being coordinated very ably by our First Deputy Mayor, Tony Shores. He's working with our partners in state government, MTA, and other agencies. The plan that we've been executing today, 450 salt spreaders were dispatched as soon as snow began. And now plows have been attached to nearly 1,500 collection vehicles and dispatched. We have on hand 175,000 tons of rock salt to deal with this storm and the upcoming storms as well. And we are on 12-hour split shifts. The 7 a.m. shift, including 2,000 sanitation workers, all focused on the storm. Plow NYC has been activated so New Yorkers can track snow clearing work, both salting and plowing in your neighborhood. Again, that's at nyc.gov. Tertiary streets will be handled by and large by plow contractors who will be on duty starting at 5 p.m. today. Departments of Parks, Environmental Protection, and Transportation will supplement the snow removal effort with their own equipment. And DOT has specifically devoted 19 crews to clearing priority pedestrian overpasses. Alternate side parking has been suspended today. That is a decision we made yesterday, and we are now announcing that we will suspend alternate side parking tomorrow as well. As we have all learned through painful experience, parking meters remain in effect throughout this situation. Yesterday, we decided to cancel garbage and recycling collections. We will decide going forward when they will resume. Obviously, there will be delays in garbage and recycling pickup because of the snow response. Reminder to property owners. All property owners are required to shovel their sidewalks within 4 hours after snowfall has begun. I have shoveled twice this morning already because it came on so quickly. I think it was 6:30 and 7:30. That's how quickly things were accumulating this morning. Some updates for our schools: after-school programs, field trips, and PSAL athletic activities are all canceled today. For our seniors, senior centers will be providing take-home meals, and they will be closing after lunchtime. The case management agencies that serve our seniors are reaching out to their at-risk clients. The meals providers will be delivering meals today, but there may be delays, of course, because of the snow. I've said it each time, I'll say it every time we have one of these challenges to all my fellow New Yorkers: please check in on your neighbors. If you have neighbors who are senior citizens, if you have neighbors who are disabled, please see if they need a little extra help given the situation. Also emphasizing, please be smart about how you call for assistance. If it is an everyday problem, if there's a heat problem, if there's wanting to check on snow plowing or any everyday situation, operational situation, use 311. 311 is the go-to for information and to report problems. If there is a life-threatening situation, a genuine emergency, that's when you turn to 911. And additionally, want to let people know that additional EMS units have been added. So there'll be additional ambulances available and ready to go throughout this storm. We'll keep providing updates and additional information as the day goes on. Any New Yorker that wants to get constant updates can sign up on nyc.gov for Notify NYC texts and email alerts. A couple of other things I want to give you some additional updates and then just have a few sentences in Spanish, and then we'll take your questions. We felt very good about the response to the first storm, January 2nd. And then the response to the last storm obviously left something to be desired. So we did a review of our efforts, and we've come up with some initial changes that we actually were able to implement right away to improve the snow clearing operations and the response to the storm this time. I want to commend our first Deputy Mayor, Tony Shorris, our Director of Operations, Mindy Tarlow, and our Sanitation Commissioner, John Doherty, who instantly got to work on that review after the last storm and quickly identified areas for improvement. And I want to commend them further for putting these recommendations into action immediately as this next storm approached. First of all, as I mentioned, one of the most important decisions was to cancel trash collections and recycling collections early enough to allow us to focus all our sanitation resources on snow removal. So we made that decision yesterday afternoon. That allowed for the equipment, the salt spreading equipment, to be pre-positioned as of midnight tonight so we could get a fast response once the snow actually started to hit. There's also been an excellent coordination. I want to say one of the things we learned from the last storm was we could do a better job of getting each agency to help each other. I want to commend the NYPD, the Sanitation Department, obviously our Mayor's Office of Operations, and the MTA. There's been very productive conversations in the last week and great collaboration on improving some of our approach. So, for example, NYPD cameras have been accessed now by sanitation department to improve the targeting of our sanitation equipment, greatly expanding the knowledge base that the sanitation department gets to work with to make those decisions. The MTA, to their great credit, and we worked together with them on this, they made sure that all articulated buses that went out for rush hour today had chains on their wheels. That is a great advantage, given the size of the articulated buses, to maximize their ability to function well under these conditions. Excellent work was done to agree on a interagency effort to tow any buses that did experience problems so they could be moved quickly out of the way, and that was another example of smart collaboration, and that's available if we find problems with buses. MTA, in particular, pre-positioned tow vehicles to allow for a quicker response if any buses were to have a problem. We're also now looking at something that's been worked on for a while, which is new routing for snow removal. We think there are some routes that can be improved upon in terms of the configuration of the route. They're going to be modeled out and tested in the near future. And we are utilizing a variety of city resources to monitor the conditions on the ground in different neighborhoods. This is the Scout effort. And it is a systematic utilization of city employees to get live action reports from different neighborhoods so we can fine-tune our efforts. I can't tell you how proud I am of everyone involved for quickly recognizing these areas for improvement and acting on them. I think it's going to greatly improve our efforts, and you're going to see that play out today. En español. Estamos enfrentando la primera de 3 posibles tormentas de nieve esta semana. La segunda probablemente llegará el martes en la noche y la tercera llegará durante el fin de semana. Por favor, utilicen transportación pública. Será más rápido y seguro que conducir. With that, we have a drink of water from, it's not a milk bottle, it just looks like one, but it's got water in it. And now, we welcome your questions. Yes?
This new, Mr. Mayor, these new improvements, these new measures, are they basic changes to the protocols followed when the city has a snowstorm, or just because the last snowstorm, maybe the response wasn't as good, are just changes to the way that snowstorm was handled?
I'm going to give my answer while looking at the first deputy mayor, who was deeply involved in arranging this. So if at any time you want to add to my insights, or you can even initiate if you'd like, but I will. I think these are reforms that will help us on an ongoing basis. I think we learned quickly that there were some things that could be done better. Look, every new administration has an opportunity to put a fresh set of eyes on the situation. And we felt that there were some things that could be better coordinated. We felt there were some decisions that needed to be made more aggressively and early. And I think in this process, we've created some stronger protocols. Also, the feedback loop is crucial here. I always talked about the experience of the 2010 storm. I don't think the city of New York at the time had the kind of information flowing from the community level it needed to. I don't think the city of New York was communicating with neighborhoods the way it could. Now, a reform in that has been Plow NYC, and we're happy about that, and we're also going to make sure assiduously that Plow NYC has functioning equipment so we give people very accurate readings on what's going on. But we're also trying to use social media more effectively to constantly update people, and we have great partners, by the way, in local elected officials and community boards that want to be a part of that in helping to get us real-time reports on places where there's problems, but also update people on improved responses and specific problems that are being addressed. So I think you're going to see a lot more give and take, which we welcome. But some of these are about coordination between agencies that bluntly just weren't happening as well as they could, and everyone's willing to do it. But there had to be some leadership, and I want to commend the First Deputy Mayor and the Director of Operations for helping to get people more on the same page, and I think now we have a much stronger construct to respond with. Marcia.
Mr. Mayor, CBS 2 has received numerous calls of complaint in the West Brighton section of Staten Island. Numbers of car accidents, streets have not been plowed, especially Bard Avenue. There are hospitals on each end of Bard Avenue, and apparently it's usually plowed by now. The complaints are that it hasn't, and there's a lot of accidents. Question is, what will you do about it? And also, there are reports that the fire department might consider closing some of those streets because they're hazardous. I wonder if you or your fire commissioner could talk.
Let me let Commissioner Doherty and Commissioner Cassano speak to both. Let me just say, I just came from the Sanitation Department Operations Center, which I have to say is an extraordinary place in that there is constant direct views of different key points around the city with the cameras, in addition, of course, to the plow tracker methodology. We looked carefully at Staten Island, given some of the concerns I had heard previously, given the concerns I heard yesterday from the elected officials. I saw a number of real-time views of Staten Island, and I thought, in general, there was some good work being done. But let's clarify, that's on the primary roads. I want to make this point. I am learning about snow removal more than I ever expected to. I hope to share my knowledge with you. The first focus is on primary roads, and it has to be on primary roads. That is how everyone gets around, especially coming into a morning rush hour. That is how we keep the pathways to our hospitals open and for emergency vehicles. So in the beginning of a storm, and I'm going to use my own words, Commissioner, and you can correct me as an expert, but in the beginning of the storm, Sanitation Department has to over-focus on the primary roads. If we can't get the primary roads to be very strong, nothing else works. So a lot of energy in the first hours of the storm went to the primary roads. Clearly, in many parts of our city, people are concerned about secondary and tertiary roads. I don't blame them. I just want them to understand that our first use of the equipment is to make sure the main thoroughfares are open in every borough, and then we work from there to go deeper. But we will definitely look immediately at the concerns you're raising about Staten Island and get an update to you and to the people of Staten Island on what we're doing to improve the situation. Let me get Commissioner Doherty to come up and then Commissioner Cassano.
I think the mayor pointed out what we're doing over there. Some of the streets up there are hilly in that piece of Bard Avenue, so they're probably slippery. I don't know exactly what time the people complained about that, and what time?
1 o'clock.
Okay, so we're working in the area. We're working in the area. I would assume Bard Avenue was done. I don't know exactly what's going on over there. We're going to look at our GPS to see what time it was done. But we're continuing to salt and plow, and snow is continuing to come down. So it's a never-ending process to keep going back over these roadways.
Is Bard Avenue a particular concern because of its hilliness, or?
Well, anytime you're going to hill, you're probably going to have a little slipperiness. And there is a St. Vincent's Hospital down at one end down there. That's considered the primary area right off the bat. There may be some streets in and off that have to be plowed yet. I agree, the secondary streets, as the mayor pointed out. But we're looking at that, and we're continually going through the primary streets.
Is Bard Avenue a primary street?
I believe it is. I would have to look, but I believe it is. At least down by the hospital, it is, definitely.
Marshall, all of West Brighton is very hilly. Now, we wouldn't shut any streets without conferring with the NYPD. The only reason why we would shut a street is if we had a car accident, we'd have to clear the car accident. So it hasn't been brought to my attention yet that we had to reach out to the PD to shut streets, because if we shut a street, it has a lot of ripple effects. We would shut it only to remove the car if that was the case.
Okay, yes.
How much last time were cars on the road a problem in the snow removal? And if they were a big problem...
When you say, I'm sorry, how much less time? I'll explain.
How much of a problem were cars being on the road when really they shouldn't be? Folks driving last time, because now you're really emphasizing that people shouldn't be driving, they should be using mass transit.
I'm going to go a little bit the other way around. The first storm, the New Yorkers did an exemplary job of getting off the streets in the night, and that really opened up the possibilities for sanitation to get in there immediately. That's part of why the response to the first storm was so strong. People really heeded the call. The second storm, I think, as the evening wore on, people did stay off the streets more and more. The problem was the storm hit before the evening rush hour. So it really, in that way, and it sped up, as everyone remember. For a long time, we were getting a National Weather Service report of 6 to 10 inches, and then I remember very vividly being on the phone with the National Weather Service when that became 10 to 14 inches, and it was like turned on a dime. So that storm hit surprisingly fast in the hours leading up to rush hour. So I think that was the central strategic challenge. Tonight, if people get off the streets, it's going to allow us to rebound from the storm much more effectively, much more quickly.
There was some indication last time that the placement of traffic agents being taken out of the Upper East Side may have had something to do with sanitation access being restricted. Is anything going to change in that this time?
Well, let me answer it in two ways. First, the view we take on the way we need to both deploy our traffic agents and protect them under certain circumstances. This storm, obviously, you can see the differences between this storm and last storm. It's a lot warmer. You don't have the wind situation. You have proportionally less iciness on the roads. You don't have the blowing snow, so you don't have the visibility challenges. We felt last time that there was a real danger to a lot of our traffic agents if they didn't have equipment with them, a vehicle with them to provide some indication of where they were, that literally motorists wouldn't be able to see them because of the swirling snow and the visibility issues. This time, I think we have a much more favorable context. So we'll have traffic agents out in a number of locations unless at any given point we think that there might be a life-threatening situation for our traffic agents. The broader point is, I think what we learned from our initial review, and we're still working on it, but the initial review pointed out that we had a series of things happen on the Upper East Side. It was not any one specific single indicator. It was, to some extent, what happened with the speed of the storm, to some extent what happened with buses that got stalled, to some extent what happened with the Queensboro Bridge situation. A lot of different pieces contributed, so I don't think the traffic agent piece was at all essential. I think there were many deeper root causes. But the good news is we've tried to get ahead of a lot of those root causes this time. And again, we have a more favorable circumstance in which to have traffic agents out there. Sally.
You mentioned you're studying possibly redoing some of the routes in the future, I guess not for this storm.
Correct.
Does that affect the Upper East Side, or can you give us any more details?
We are, again, I'll look to Tony and I'll look to John and Mindy. That's something that we've identified as an area that we think is promising. Again, it was discussed in the previous administration as something we want to look at more deeply and act on hopefully soon. But we're not ready to make definitive choices about that just yet. We think there may be some ways of doing it better going forward. Yes.
With the improvements that are being put into place, do you expect that you'll be touring any neighborhoods like you did at the Upper East Side to express regret with how things happened, or do you think that'll have to happen again, or do you think things...
Well, I don't speculate. And again, it's not about regret. It's about doing things well and showing people that we are hearing their concerns and acting on them. That's why I went out to Staten Island yesterday, talked through what happened in the previous storm and learned from it. And I thought there was a very, very cooperative attitude from the elected officials and community leaders who want to work more closely with City Hall. And I have to note in the case of Staten Island, a lot of people have felt over the years, over many administrations, that City Hall was not responsive enough to them. It was very important to me to say, we want to do better. We want to do better in partnership, and I think there was a real spirit of partnership there. So I'm going to judge each and every time if there's things I need to see myself. I will certainly make clear to all New Yorkers and all the people who work for the City of New York, if I hear too many complaints about a particular area, it's a good likelihood I'm coming myself to look at it. But this is not about looking backward. This is about looking forward to how we can improve the performance each time. Rich.
Mr. Mayor, I guess that there are additional police cameras now that are available. Do we have any idea of how many of those are? And do you think there's a remarkable number of storms that are coming your way?
Rich, I think that's a fair statement. I think you are a keen observer of the human condition. I am surprised by the number of storms. I am surprised I'm starting a press conference telling you about the 3 storms we'll have this week, but that's part of life. I have to say, just 1 second on the days before this storm, thank God the storm waited until after the Super Bowl. We had an extraordinary 4 or 5 days in this town. The City of New York and all of our city agencies performed in an exemplary fashion. I can't tell you how many compliments I got from people all over the country about how extraordinary our efforts were to prepare for the Super Bowl and then implement the plan. In the category of counting our blessings, I'm sorry we have this storm today, but it's good that we got the whole Super Bowl done so well before it hit. But I think that in terms of the cameras, we've gotten the kind of interagency cooperation that is really going to help us have real-time information. So I'm going to look at any combination of Tony, Mindy, Joe, John. Who wants to talk about the cameras and the numbers of the cameras or where the cameras are pointed? Anyone? John?
We started monitoring the police cameras last night at midnight. I had gone over there last week to talk with the chief and my staff. We looked at them. We said there's an opportunity here for the C stuff that we don't normally see on a Department of Transportation cameras we get. It's still a learning process. I'm not getting enough into the secondary and tertiary streets. Many of those cameras are on primary or busy areas. Some of them are in the secondary. So it's a learning program. What we're trying to do with them now is overlap our network of primary, secondary, and tertiary streets with PD so that we can figure out exactly where the cameras are. We've seen some reports today, but I think it's early on. But it does give us another set of eyes out there, and that's what we're looking for to better judge overall city as much as we can.
Yes, Beth.
You talked a little bit about trash removal this time and making adjustments to start that earlier. Was that a significant problem last time, or do you think the trash removal started too late last time to get the plows out on the Upper East Side?
Yeah, I think the timing of the storm last time, if you looked at the initial reports, it suggested there was time to get some trash removal in first and then convert over to plowing. By definition, that would be the ideal thing to do. If you had time to get trash in and recycling in, you should. You don't want it collecting on streets. But I think what happened was the storm sped up and we had much more snow than was expected, more in an earlier way. So yes, I think one of the things we concluded is that when you have unpredictable dynamics with a storm, by definition, that if National Weather Service says expect it at 6 a.m., that could mean 5 a.m., that could mean 4 a.m., you're never 100% sure. They say it's going to be 10 inches, that could turn into 14 inches really quickly. And so we wanted to be strategic about it, and we decided to pull back the trash and recycling so we could be fully operational in terms of snow removal from the beginning. So I think that was a good reform. Yes, Josh?
Mayor, notwithstanding the fact that there is a lot of snow, do you feel that the expectations of snow removal are a little unrealistic? That maybe people should, get over it a little bit and not complain as much? It just seems like you grew up in the Northeast. You know that there's, in winter, sometimes
snow happens. Is that your phrase?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the kvetchometer has kind of been exceeded a little.
Look, I think this morning, as I said, I was shoveling my house, and I think as any homeowner will tell you, you shovel your walk and you look at your street, and it's normal that people would like to see their street as clear as possible. I think your point that you raise gets to something important. And this is why I'd say to all New Yorkers, first, we have to get the primary streets cleared. That is a matter of public safety. That is a matter of being able to make the basics of this city work. If we think about making sure our rush hours go well, for example, we need those primary streets open. And there's only so much equipment and so much personnel, even in their optimal situations like today, where we put everything we had on the table. There's still a limit on the number of people and the amount of machinery we have available. So I think what I'd say to people is, I don't ever expect my fellow New Yorkers to be patient. I don't think that's part of our nature or our character. But I do think people should recognize there is a progression. It's what Peyton Manning was having a problem with last night, looking at his first receiver, second receiver, third receiver. He couldn't find any of them. But for John Doherty and the men and women of the sanitation department, they have to go primary streets first. Then they work towards the secondary. Then they work towards the tertiary. They bring in the outside equipment to help with the tertiary. So it does take a little time. What the people of the city have every right to expect of us, however, is that within the capacity we have, that we do it as effectively and quickly as possible, and that we communicate as much as possible to them. Clearly, last time we didn't do all those things to the best of our ability. The time before, I think we did. So I want to hold a high standard for our performance and then say to people, now be a little patient about how long it takes to cover 6,300 miles of streets. I remind you, the streets of this city are enough to stretch from here to Los Angeles and back, and that's what these 2,000 men and women have to cover under adverse conditions and with lots of traffic in the way. So that's where I'd agree with you, a little patience is called for, yes?
You certainly had a baptism by snow. I wonder...
Clever phrase, Marcia.
It's my job.
All right.
I wonder if there are lessons learned so far in dealing with this not only as a municipal issue, but as a political issue.
Well, let's talk about it as a municipal issue. My police commissioner, Bill Bratton, always talks about collaboration and how different agencies have to work together, and he's been a great apostle of that idea, and part of what has made him so effective over the years is he believes in that notion. I believe in it, too, fundamentally. I think what we're seeing here is agencies are starting to find better ways to work together, better ways to communicate. I think certainly we're making some decisions in a more strategic fashion because we're talking to people on the ground. Again, I'm not going to mince words about the fact that I think the previous administration didn't do that particularly well, and we are adamant about the need to talk to people on the ground, to hear what's working and what's not working. And social media is a great tool in that, as is traditional media that tells us about the situation on Bard Avenue, for example. So I think the notion here is a much faster, better feedback loop, much more collaboration between agencies, much more communication between agencies, and a tighter strategic plan going into battle. That's what I think we're learning to do better every day. Very proud of the people standing around me. I think they've all been doing an incredible job. This has just been rapid fire. They all have day jobs. They're all supposed to be doing a lot of other things simultaneously, and they have to keep reverting over to storm duty and then coming back, and they've kept with it. And I think that the politics simply derives from the human reality. People are going to respond if they think things are done well. They'll respond one way. If they think things are done poorly, they'll respond another way. And they deserve to see a city government firing on all cylinders and on the job getting things done for them, and that's what we endeavor to do. Thank you, everyone.